Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. Today, there's a lot to talk about, so I decided to leave the title very vague. We are going to dive very deep into why I think Marvel might be struggling a little bit, talking about Thunderbolts box office success. We're going to be talking about the huge news that Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars got pushed back, and we're also going to be talking a little bit about Spider-Man Brand New Day. So that being said, let's dive into this, shall we? Bum, 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 bum. Marvel Monday! Bum, 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 bum. Okay, so starting off with the big question for today's video, is Marvel Studios in trouble? I will say, I personally am actually a little surprised about the fact that as of right now, Thunderbolts is not doing so hot in the box office. I was expecting it to surpass Captain America Brave New World relatively decently. I feel like Captain America Brave New World, there was a lot of bad news coming out about it before the movie came out. There was a lot of very questionable things about it. There were people who were trying to boycott that movie. There definitely seemed to be a lot going against Captain America Brave New World. So recently I decided to check on the box office for this year and see kind of how everything is doing. And to my surprise, Thunderbolts is still relatively far away from hitting the mark that Captain America Brave New World left. And part of the reason why this is concerning to me, it wouldn't be if it was, a big summer blockbuster. I wouldn't be as surprised because, it'd be competing against a lot of big movies. But that's the thing, as somebody who makes a lot of movie content, I've seen a lot of the other movies that are currently out in theaters. And with the exception of the current Mission Impossible movie, there's not really any huge movies out right now that I would say is better than Thunderbolts. The Final Destination Bloodlines movie that came out is relatively solid, but it's a horror movie. I think that the audiences don't necessarily match up perfectly. Obviously, there's a small amount of people who are big Marvel fans who probably also like horror and went to see both. But I don't think that it's one of those things that there's competition between those two, and some people had to choose between Final Destination or Thunderbolts, and they picked Final Destination. I don't think that that's a thing. I think that people who are big horror fans obviously are going to see Final Destination, and they probably aren't even necessarily superhero fans. So the fact that for almost 3 weeks during the month of May, it was the only good movie really out in theaters, which I know is a subjective thing, but for the most part, Sinners is still one of the biggest movies playing currently in theaters, but I think that it's really not a great sign that that movie didn't have as great of legs as I was expecting. I think that the first week was huge, and then the box office drop was relatively decent sized, and then they tried to do a giant marketing push where they were like, surprise, this is the new Avengers, and that didn't really seem to work. I think that kind of almost similarly to when they announced RDJ as Doctor Doom, there was a lot of mixed reception about that, where a lot of fans were kind of like, well, this seems like a desperate thing to do. And then other people who I know know this much about Marvel were asking me about it, and we're just like, that was an Avengers movie? And he was like, what do you mean by that? And it's just creating a big confusion for people who are like, oh, well, I might go see it, but now they're like, well, now do I need to go watch the Avengers movies to understand what's going on here? And I think that on the one hand, I can understand Avengers is a movie title that every single movie that's been titled The Avengers has had great success in the box office. Every single one of them have made at least $1 billion, and the last two, I believe, both made $2 billion. So putting Avengers on the title of Thunderbolts, it seems like something, hey, this could probably help us make a little bit of extra money, but I don't think that they did it successfully. I think that it was a little too late, and I think that it still is struggling with the issue of a lot of people aren't very interested in going to see these characters. Obviously, Florence Pugh, relatively big star. She's going to be rising even more in fame in the next couple of years. Obviously, Wyatt Russell is going to be huge. He's got a couple of solid movies coming out in the next couple of years. I think that Wyatt Russell is somebody who's really going to start being given his flowers. Lewis Pullman definitely gave almost an Oscar level performance in that movie, so I wouldn't be surprised if in 4 or 5 years from now Lewis Pullman is winning Oscars. Sebastian Stan obviously almost won an Oscar last year. David Harbour is a big fan favorite person for a lot of people, so the cast is relatively successful, but the Thunderbolts iconography and that team as a whole is not something a lot of people are excited for, and it does kind of seem like one of those things where a lot of people are underwhelmed by superhero media in general. And even though this is a relatively great story about mental health and about, coming together and the fact that you're not alone, which I think is a great message, and obviously the movie has gotten a lot of really good reviews, it somehow wasn't enough to save it, which is very, very interesting. And I think that is a little spooky scary. And now we have the news that Avengers Doomsday is being pushed back to kind of transition into this next segment. And I think that obviously it being pushed back is good news. Like inherently, that is a really good idea. If you are making a movie and it's going to be this huge of a scale, there's going to be 60 plus characters, take your time with it, make sure everything is correct, want to make sure that the CGI is going to look fantastic, want to make sure that all of the actors have a chance to potentially come back and do reshoots if they need to. There's chances for ADR if they kind of are in the editing room and realize, okay, we need to add a scene so that these two characters can interact. They can do that. And something that I do think Marvel has been relatively decent with in the last couple of years is taking feedback from fans. And I think that it is one of those things where it's like they wrote the entire script for Avengers Doomsday before Thunderbolts could come out, and we can get kind of the fans' ideas of like, oh, we really like this character, oh, we don't really like this character. So like imagine potentially like somebody was, you know, writing Bob and Sentry to be like a very tiny role in this, and then he is the breakout star of the movie and everybody's like, yeah, we love Bob, oh my god, Lewis Pullman was absolutely incredible, and they're over here like, we had him have one line of dialogue and he was going to be killed off by Doctor Doom. Now we got to work on that. I think that it's definitely giving them time to take a look at what they're doing, reflect on it, and potentially put more time and effort into it, which is always inherently a good thing. I will say one of the few things that I think is potentially bad about it, and I think that Marvel has kind of had this issue a lot, and I think that when it comes to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, time was a killer. When it came to Deadpool and Wolverine, time kind of was a killer in the sense that because we knew these movies were coming out, it gave us more time to speculate. It gave us more time to have fan theories. It made more time for rumors to come out about like, oh, this character's going to be in it. And oh my God, that character's going to be in it. And there's going to be this giant sequence and it's going to be with this person and that person. And because it took so long for the movies to come out since we originally heard about them, our expectations keep snowballing. Right? And I think that Avengers Doomsday is going to be a good movie. I'm excited about it. I think that the Russo brothers have done relatively well in the MCU where it comes to, you know, Kevin Feige giving them all their pointers and all the directions and everything that they need. They're usually really good at being able to take big ensemble casts and put them together in a way that's coherent and actually leads to a good story and has good character dynamics. But I do think it's going to struggle with a lot of uphill expectations because everybody's expecting this movie to be an incredible movie. A lot of people are like, okay, we're getting X-Men versus the Avengers. It's going to be a really huge deal. We're going to be also seeing, you know, the Fantastic Four. A lot of people are speculating that Jessica Alba has been posting things, kind of making it seem like she's going to be reprising her role as the Invisible Woman. And a lot of people are just over here talking about this person's going to cameo and that person's going to cameo and this supervillain is going to be in it and it's going to be this huge ordeal and it's going to have so many characters. And now Marvel is kind of stuck in a position where they need to have that many characters. They need to somehow have it work and they need to give us something that is a once in a lifetime experience, a movie that will truly, for decades, people will be able to look back at it and be like, yes, that was incredible. Thank God we got that when we did, because as much as this year, a lot of us have been talking about Superman being one of the like biggest movies that has the most on its back, that like it needs to carry its weight so that the entire DC universe can kind of survive. I think that Avengers Doomsday is going to have that for superhero medium in general, because Thunderbolts kind of being renamed New Avengers and not doing as well in the box office is a little scary in the sense of, you know, shareholders are going to see it and be like, oh my God, this movie has Avengers in the title and it's not doing so well. What's going on with that? So I definitely think that if Avengers Doomsday doesn't potentially make $1 billion, that can be very problematic and it can be a very big issue. And they moved it to an incredibly busy month. It's potentially going to be coming out the same day as Dune Messiah, which Dune Part 2 made an incredible amount of money for the month that it came out in. So it's very interesting. I think that we'll obviously have to wait and see, but I think that typically speaking, when it comes to Marvel releases, because, and I'm saying this like from my personal experience and like friends that I have that watch Marvel, when we heard Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was being announced, and that's what the name of that movie was, and we started speculating, oh, this is going to happen in it, and this is going to happen in it. We had 2 years to think about all the possibilities for what could potentially be in this movie, and then it comes out, and it's a solid movie, but it doesn't live up to our expectations. It therefore makes it where our word of mouth for it isn't going to be as good because, like, well, it didn't meet our high expectations. And then same thing with Deadpool and Wolverine. For me personally, I know a couple of other people in recent months have kind of finally been like dying down on it and being like, yeah, the humor isn't that great. And they kind of, here's my problem with Deadpool and Wolverine. This is the multiversal saga. I get that. But trying to like shoehorn, okay, this is now an MCU movie into that movie kind of ruined it a little bit. And another thing is it's so similar to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, where I love the first two Ant-Man movies. I think that they have the most charm, and their small scale is what makes them really special. In Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2, there's a lot of emotional gravitas in those movies. Like in the first one, you have Deadpool like dealing with his cancer treatment and the fact that he really wants to return to his love, and he can't because he thinks that he's too damaged and he's too far gone to potentially be able to be there for her. And then obviously the entire story kind of revolves around that. And then Deadpool 2, you have him losing his wife early on in the movie and then trying to continue on with his life without this loved one in his life, and then trying to kind of like see himself as a father figure because for the first time in his life he realized he kind of wanted to be a dad. And then you have Deadpool 3, no seriousness in it whatsoever. And it's like, how are you going to take a character who's very emotionally driven usually, and then just kind of throw him into this random multiversal plot and give us some cameos from cool characters that are fun to see? And obviously Hugh Jackman kind of brings some of that emotional weight to it, but he only really has the one monologue where he's really solid. And it's like, they're not living up to expectations. And part of the problem is you're announcing these movies super far in advance. You're giving the fans more time to get more anticipated for it, and they need to start doing stuff to kind of like limit that. I feel like in a lot of sense, they shouldn't be announcing movies until the first trailer comes out, because here's my thing. If we had no idea that an Avengers movie was coming out next year, right? And like, you know, eventually, you know, news comes out, okay, there's going to be an Avengers movie, you're going to get super excited about it. But then you hear, okay, there's this Avengers movie, and it's like, oh, well, it's coming out, you know, 24 months from now. Oh, okay, but now I have to wait for it, and now I'm like not going to be as amped about it. Whereas like if they drop a trailer and it's like, here's all these characters, here's all this crazy shit that's gonna happen. By the way, 6 months from now this is being released, I think it would break the internet. I think it would be a really huge thing. And yeah, obviously when they did the chair announcement, that also kind of broke the internet, but it was also something that a lot of people were like, Marvel, why the hell did you do this? Please never do this again. So we'll see. Obviously, not a whole lot going on aside from that. There's been a lot of rumors about who the villains for Spider-Man 4 is going to be. I'm incredibly excited about it. Potentially going to be seeing Michael Mando's Scorpion on the big screen finally. Actually getting his mech suit would be absolutely insanely cool. Rumors that Tombstone is going to be in it, and a villain called Boomerang, which I think could be really interesting. I've only read one comic with him, and he's somebody who is around Peter Parker's age. And in that particular comic, he is roommates with Peter Parker. And I think that that could be like an insanely cool thing to do in a movie where like Peter can't afford to, you know, live by himself. So he has to get roommates. And then the person he ends up becoming a roommate with is secretly his villain. So they're constantly running into each other and fighting and having all these like issues. And then like they go home and they're both a little beaten up, and they're just kind of like having to be like, what happened to you? And the guy's just like, got into a fight in the subway. Oh, what happened to you? Oh, whatever their other excuses. But like, I think that that could be a really cool dynamic. I'm excited about that. And then just the concept that we might potentially be getting a really grounded Spider-Man story with a gang war in it could be really cool. I think that that's something to look forward to. I'm really hoping that doesn't get pushed back, because I think that there was an article that came out that said that that movie potentially is going to be pushed back as well. But we'll see. I think that if that movie does get pushed back, though, that would suck. Because going from like 3 Marvel movies in a year to now we have to wait 14 months or 18 months before the next one would suck a little bit. But that being said, looks exciting. Speaking of looking exciting, the couple little clips that we've gotten from Fantastic Four with the little promo that they did with ESPN was a lot of fun. We're really getting the vibes of that Johnny Storm, and every single clip we see of him, I thought Joseph Quinn was great casting originally, and every single clip is just proving even more why he is, because he's younger brother energy is so good. He's kind of like obnoxious and just impatient, and I love it. I think that he's gonna be fantastic. I say that again. I'm sorry. But yeah, that being said, I'm pretty sure that's pretty much everything I wanted to touch on here. I am insanely excited about the upcoming slate. I think that Fantastic Four looks great. Brand New Day, it sounds like it's getting better. I really can't wait to see what ends up going on with that. And overall, I think that is a great time to be a movie fan. So, that being said, that was it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and checking it out. I love and appreciate you guys so much for watching. And if you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe. And I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow, bow, bow.